Did you know there are 4 methods that eliminate ants, aphids, mealybugs, and all kinds of insects from your fruit trees and plants in just a few days? I'll explain how to do it in seconds. Top 1. Double-sided tape. It is an extremely effective barrier to prevent ants and other climbing insects from going up the trunk. Look, when an ant tries to climb, it encounters a sticky surface and automatically gets stuck, or it detects that it cannot advance and ultimately ends up returning the way it came. And this is key because while we were making the video, we realized that some ants that had already accessed the tree were transporting aphids to the tenderest shoots, which are exactly the most sensitive areas of the fruit tree. That is why it is so important to start with this method, because it cuts off access from the beginning. Applying it is very simple. All we are going to use is a piece of double-sided tape. In this case, we are using a tape that is approximately 1 inch wide, but this can vary. If you have doubts or want to reinforce its effectiveness, you can always place several strips instead of just one. Well, now we place the tape around the trunk, approximately 30 cm up from the base. It is important that it completely surrounds the trunk without leaving any gaps where insects can pass through. And here is a very important detail that many people overlook. Double-sided tape comes with a protective plastic backing that covers the adhesive part. So first we place the tape around the trunk with that plastic on, adjust it well, and once it is perfectly placed, we remove that protective plastic. That is when the tape becomes fully active and ready to work. In this case, we are working with a young tree, so a single strip is enough. If the tree is larger or the trunk is wider, you will simply have to use more tape, adapting it to the diameter. Once placed, we did a test to see its effectiveness, and indeed the Aphids probe even advance a few millimeters, but as soon as they detect that they are going to get stuck, they automatically turn around. And that is the key to why this is the first method I am sharing with you, because it does not eliminate them directly, but it prevents the problem from developing. So once we have it in place, we have created that physical barrier that completely blocks the access of ants and other climbing insects. The only downside to this method is that over time, the adhesive can lose the effectiveness it had at the beginning. That is why it is advisable to check it from time to time. If you see that it is still sticking properly, you don't have to do anything. But if you notice that it has lost its grip, you have 2 options. Place a new tape over it or remove the old one and replace it with a new one. It's that simple. Top 2. Potassium soap, also known as black soap. This is a highly recommended method, especially for pests like aphids or mealybugs. And it is very effective. In a matter of 2 or 3 days, you will notice how the population decreases very clearly. And why does it work so well? Very simple. What potassium soap does is eliminate the waxy layer that protects the insect's body. By losing that protective layer, the insect dehydrates and ends up dying. That is the key principle. Preparing it is very easy. This depends on the manufacturer because it comes in liquid format and also in solid format. But as a general reference, a couple of teaspoons per liter of water would be more than enough. We add the soap to the water, stir it well until it is completely dissolved, and transfer it to a spray bottle. And now comes the important part. You have to apply a good soak. When I say a good soak, I mean covering absolutely the entire plant. Trunks, branches, leaves, the top side, and very importantly, the underside of the leaves, because that is where many of these pests tend to hide. You shouldn't fall short. We apply it thoroughly over all areas, making sure no spot is left untreated. Once applied, it is important to understand something. The effect is not immediate. At first, it may seem like nothing is happening, and this is completely normal, but as the days go by, you will see how the pest gradually disappears. In the case of aphids, in about 2 or 3 days, you can have the problem practically under control. In fact, we did the test, and the difference was very evident in a very short time. And remember that at the end of the video, you will have the result. You also have to keep in mind that there are some more persistent pests. In those cases, it may be necessary to repeat the application every 2 or 3 days until they are completely eliminated, but in general, it is an effective method, very easy to apply, and it works really well. And once we have this second method applied, we are already directly attacking the pest. Top 3, neem oil, a 100% natural product widely used in agriculture. This method is especially important because it acts as a reinforcement within the treatment. And why does it work so well? Very simple. Neem oil interferes with the biological cycle of insects, affecting their development and their ability to reproduce. Preparing it is very simple. In this case, we are going to use 10 millimol per liter of water, which is roughly equivalent to 2 tablespoons, although many bottles already come with their own dispenser. We add it to the water, mix well, and transfer it to a spray bottle. And now we apply it just like in the previous method, a good soak covering the entire plant, especially the underside of the leaves, which is where insects tend to hide and where eggs can be left. Once applied, the effect is not immediate, it is progressive. As the days go by is when the result really begins to be noticed. So applied after the potassium soap, this method acts as a reinforcement and finishes completing the treatment, helping to stabilize the plant and keep it protected for a longer time. Top 4, chives, the incorporation of chives into the substrate. This method is different from the previous ones because it does not act directly on the pests, but rather works as natural prevention. And it is especially interesting if you usually have frequent problems with aphids, mealybugs, or climbing insects in your area. And how is it applied? Very simple. What we are going to do is plant chives around the fruit tree, forming a kind of ring, or integrate it directly into the same pot if we are working in a container. This way we create a natural barrier around the plant. And why does it work? Because chives release sulfur compounds. These compounds act as a natural repellent, making insects like aphids, ants, or mealybugs not easily approach the plant. But it doesn't just act on the aerial part, it also has a very interesting effect on the soil. The roots of the chives release substances that hinder the presence and spread of nematodes in the substrate. That is to say, we are protecting both the visible part of the plant and the root zone. And that is the great advantage of this method. It does not eliminate immediately like the previous ones, but it creates a much more balanced and less favorable environment for pests to appear. Therefore, combined with the other methods, it helps keep the fruit tree protected for a longer time and greatly reduces the probability of new infestations. And now, as I promised, after 3 days, here is the result. Look at the difference in the leaves, in the stems, in areas that we practically considered lost. The difference is huge. We practically don't even have 99% of the pest we had at the beginning, and all this in just 3 days. So I can guarantee you that this works. And now I'll read you in the comments. Tell me from what part of the world you are watching me, what tree or plant you have affected, and what pest you are trying to combat. If you try any of these methods, come back and tell me how it worked for you. If this information has transformed the way you care for your plants, please subscribe and like the channel. We are revealing the secrets of nature that others try to hide. Sow knowledge to harvest a healthy future. The next treasure for your garden will open very soon.